Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. In the past 2 weeks, the unprecedented battle surrounding GameStop and a few other stocks has caused a great amount of interest from all over the world. Many Chinese netizens excitedly call it an epic battle between the chives and the sickle, while Westerners say it is a battle between ants and the elephant. Whatever terms you use, if ants can beat the elephant, if chives can launch a fight back against the sickle, that is really unusual, exciting, and encouraging. How will the ongoing battle end? Will the little guys in China also have a chance to defeat the big guys? What are the reasons behind this madness? I will discuss this after I share everyone some untold secrets of the big guys in the stock market. I think it is important that I tell these stories now for us to learn a little bit more about the darkness of the stock market, how little guys can be totally in the dark, and how the stock market is never a level playground for the little guys. But before I go on with the story, please make sure you subscribe to my channel and share my videos as widely as you can. It is very obvious that YouTube is suppressing my videos. Many of my friends' channels have been recently demonetized. In such a difficult time, I do need your support and help. Now, let's go back to my story. After I graduated from Peking University and before I left China, I only worked at 2 workplaces. Both of them were very high profile. The first one was the Development Research Center of the State Council of China. Let's show a screenshot of its website. It is the highest level government policy research and consultant body directly under the State Council. The second workplace was Tsinghua Uni Group Securities Investment Consultant Company. One of its main shareholders is Tsinghua Uni Group of Tsinghua University. Let's show a screenshot of its website. In China, Peking and Tsinghua University are the absolute top 2 universities. No other university can compete or come close. In the 1990s, Tsinghua Uni Group Security Investment Consultant Company was one of the only 5 companies in entire China that gained a license to provide financial consultant services to public companies. So we can say it is a very high-profile company too. I was once the assistant to the general manager as well as the manager of the Department of Security Investment of this company. We once worked inside the Diaoyutai State Guest House. Let's show several pictures here. You can see that the Diaoyutai State Guest House is quite magnificent. It is often used by Chinese state leaders to offer receptions to visiting foreign leaders, and our office was inside this very beautiful and magnificent complex. I'm not talking about this to boast about my past, but to let everyone know that I do have some inside knowledge and information, and the secrets I'm going to share for the first time ever are real, and I'm sure you haven't heard about them from anywhere else. Well, in the 1990s, China had just started its experiment with learning from the West and opening up its own stock market. In the beginning, only a handful of companies were allowed to be listed in the market, so there were very few stocks. Because the demand was far above the supply every time when the company launched its IPO, which is initial public offering, it was very hard to buy any, as too many people rushed to buy. Because the supply was so lacking, whatever original stocks you could get, you would certainly make a lot of money after you sold them when stock was traded at the market. Because the competition was so hot, it became a question as to who could buy and who could not, and how to ensure that the little guys could have a fair game in this battle. So in the end, the authorities came up with an idea. Let's adopt a lottery mechanism to determine who could buy the original shares. First of all, everyone who wanted to buy can place their orders, and the computer system would generate an order number for each order, and then according to the ratio of the total number of orders to the actual quantity of shares, a so-called winning rate was set. And then the computer would decide which numbers won, and people with the winning numbers could then buy the shares. And in order to make sure that everyone had a fair chance, every investor could only buy a maximum of 1,000 shares. You think this is fair enough, right? The truth is, you are absolutely wrong. First of all, the institutional players figured out ways to own more than one shareholder's card or security account card. Usually, every investor could only apply for one security account card and one security account number. Let's show a picture of a security account card from the Shanghai stock market. You can see there's a number on the cover and then other information inside, including the person's name, address, national ID card number, date of when the account was opened, etc. So how could you own more than one card? There are several channels I knew of. Some institutional players just bought a lot of dead people's ID cards from the Public Security Bureau, as dead people's ID cards were supposed to be returned to the Public Security Bureau, so they had a lot to sell. Then you could use dead people's ID cards to apply for security account cards. That was the least direct channel. A more direct channel was just to buy fake security account cards from the blank market. I've seen a lot of these fake cards. How did I know they were fake? Let's show an ID card from China. You can see on this card there are 18 digits at the bottom of the card. That is the ID number of this person. The first 6 digits represent her city code where she lives. Then the next 8 digits represent her date of birth. Like this girl, she was born on October the 9th, 2002. So you can see the 8 digits on her card are 20021009. They are the year, month, and the date of her birthday. So if you see an ID card with 13 as the month or 35 as the date of someone's birthday, you know this is fake, as there's only 12 months in the year and there is no 35th day in any month. I guess because too many fake security account cards were produced and the people who produced them were not very careful. They made quite a lot of these low-level mistakes when faking the ID card numbers. However, owning a lot of fake cards was only part of the game. The next step was the dealers provided special services to the institutional players. They actually developed a special program for these institutional players. How did the special program work? For ordinary investors, the little guys, and the real people, and everyone had only one ID card, one secured account card, and one fund account in which to deposit their money with one dealer. So they could only place one order when buying original shares. The so-called winning rate at that time was actually only a few thousandths which means out of 1,000 orders, there were only a few, maybe 1, 2, or 3 winners. So for the retail buyers, their chances to win were almost zero, as there could be only a few IPOs in the entire year. You needed to place the order for maybe 1,000 or 500 times to ensure one winning bid. However, for the institutional investors, the dealers allowed them to connect as many security account cards as possible to their fund account and developed a special program for them to place bulk orders. If they had 1,000 security account cards connected to their fund account, they only needed to place one bulk order, and the program would automatically transform this one bulk order into 1,000 individual orders for each security account card connecting to the sole fund account. And because these 1,000 orders were created almost at the same time, their order numbers were continuous. So if you do a lottery, because these institutional investors owned over 1,000 numbers, they would surely win. If the winning rate was 3 per 1,000, they would surely have 3 winning numbers, so they could always buy the original shares and make huge profits. So in this game, the little guys, although they placed orders every time, could never have an equal chance to win as the big guys. That is the situation with the IPOs. And how about the normal daily trading? Let me tell you another real case I knew. There was a company in Shanxi province in China which launched its IPO in the late 1990s. Let's call it Q Company. Usually on the first trading day after the IPO, most investors who won the original shares via the lottery system I just talked about would sell their shares to lock their profits. At that time, there was virtually no risk to buy original shares. You could always sell them on day one when they were traded on the stock market. So many institutional investors specialized in doing this or doing only this. So on the first day when the shares of Q Company were traded, this company, which already had a large number of fake security accounts, quietly bought a significantly large portion of its own shares with the money they just received via the IPO. But these shares were under the fake names on the fake cards. So in theory, their shares were bought by many enthusiastic individual investors. That's what their public information would tell you. Anyway, this company bought its own shares at an average price of a few yuan on the first trading day. Little by little, the share price climbed up. As the company owned a lot of its own shares, it was very easy to control the price. You can just buy and sell the shares to yourself, especially right before the market was closed. In such a way, you could control at what price the share ended for that day, and thus create a perfect technical pattern for your share. Several months later, the price went up to around 15 yuan. For a manufacturing factory of its kind, that was about how high its share price could go. Then, the company suddenly announced that it would acquire a high-tech company in Shenzhen city and thus transform itself into a high-tech company. So the market became very excited. If you could call yourself a high-tech company, your share price went up to another territory, which was at least over 30 yuan. In China, it was very easy to buy over several so-called experts or market analysts to have them talk on TV or in the newspaper about how much more this company's shares would be worth. So the deceived little guys kept buying, while the company itself quietly sold the shares it held for nearly 1 year. After this round of operation, this company made a profit of about 75 of buying and selling its own shares. As to its high-tech transformation, sorry, it never intended to do so. And as to those little guys who bought their shares at the highest price, sorry, that's your own bad luck. So this is just one of the two stories I knew. There were too many similar stories in the market every day. After working in this sector for 2 years, whenever there were friends or relatives who asked me for advice regarding the stock market, I always said to them, my only advice is never touch it. Well, that's the situation in China. I never advised anyone not to touch stocks in the US or any other countries. While many people in China also became very interested and excited about what was happening surrounding GameStop, some of them couldn't help asking, what could the little guys in China learn from the little guys in the US? Can they do the same thing? My answer is no. In China, the CCP has absolute control over every sector of the society. It could hard to imagine that 2 million people could discuss or organize something on the internet without interruption. The CCP will shut down this kind of discussion before it attracts maybe only 200 people. Any group activities that are not allowed by the CCP can be regarded as dangerous. The next question is, how do I look at the GameStop phenomena? For those who don't know much about GameStop or things surrounding it yet, let me do a short introduction first. GameStop is an American video game, consumer electronics, and gaming merchandise retailer. It is the world's largest video game retailer and has over 5,000 retail stores throughout the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and Europe. In recent years, its business has not been good and its share prices dropped a lot. And because some hedge fund managers believed that the share price of GameStop would continue to fall, they shorted it by 140%, which means if GameStop had 100 shares, they had borrowed 140 shares and sold them. They sold something they didn't have or own. Some people found this out and thought that because GameStop was overshorted, its price could bounce back. And then, through the coordinated effort by a Reddit community called Wall Street Bets, or WSB, which already has over 8 million members. Please show the screenshot of the community. So through this community, more and more little guys, perhaps millions of them, started to buy GameStop's shares. This resulted in a 1,050% increase in GameStop's share price over the course of 2 weeks, reaching an all-time intraday high of $483 as of January 29, 2021. Let's have a quick look at its price chart. And because of the quick and sharp price rise, several large hedge funds that shorted it suffered heavy losses. Some had to close out their positions, and there were also rumors that some were talking about filing bankruptcy. So it seems that for the first time ever, the little guys, by acting together, were able to beat the big guys. In China, netizens often call the little guys chives that can only be cut or ripped by the sickles repeatedly. Isn't it exciting that now the chives are actually cutting or defeating the sickles? Experts would say, oh no, it was crazy. It was not rational. GameStop's share could never hold up at such a high price, and those who rushed in late would suffer great losses, etc. Yes, all these arguments are true and have some value in them, but they failed to explain why the GameStop phenomena happened. Although the stock market in the Western countries are fundamentally different from the CCP stock markets, there are also quite a lot similarities. For example, the rules are created by the big guys, and big guys sometimes change the rules to benefit themselves in terms of information, insight, knowledge, and the services they can enjoy. Just like the examples I mentioned earlier, the big guys have a lot more advantages. That's why the chives are always reaped by sickles, not the other way around. In some sense, the GameStop phenomenon not only reflects problems with our financial systems, but is also a manifestation of little guys' anger and resentment towards the political system. Let's take a look at the Wall Street Bets or WSB's logo. I think everyone can get the message here. That logo with a Trump's hairstyle has become a symbol, and many people are using it as their social media profile photo too. In one of my previous shows, I talked about the cycle of formation, stasis, degeneration, destruction, emptiness. That is the Buddhist theory of how the universe evolves and operates. Perhaps we are really in a historic moment when the previous cycle is ending and another cycle is about to begin. So looking forward, more unusual, surprising, or even shocking things could happen in such an uncertain time. I think the most important thing for us to do is to uphold the truth and principles, stick to our conscience, and do what we can to spread the truth and good messages. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and share it with your friends and family. Thank you. See you next time.